How's it going? My name is Chris, and this is a little bit of a preview of our programming process on the Take Lessons platform. So we're going to be working with JavaScript, a little bit of HTML for the visual effects, and then further going to give you a little bit of layout on how this can actually pertain, ignore the little square, how this can actually pertain to all programming classes. Now, most methodologies within JavaScript are useful everywhere. So one of the things to consider is why JavaScript? Why go into browser programming? The biggest deal here is there's no compiler. There's no piece of barrier between you as the student and getting into the code right away and doing some really cool stuff. We're making games, we're making user interfaces, and depending on how far within the course, we'll end up making a program and a website like Facebook, Google, and so forth. So here's a little bit on the process there. Again, ignore that square. It's the only way I can get my face in just for this quick minute. So let's see. What we will be using is our Visual Studio Code. There are plenty of different platforms to use for this, but this is the easiest, quickest, and lightest method. Reason why we're using this is because it is going to guide us through our actual code. It's going to give us some coloring and give us a bit of a visual appeal as we are actually working through and coding. So consider the first of many things. First, we'll start off with the basic HTML and then kind of attach our JavaScript and start playing from there. So one of the first things to know about HTML on its own is that there are some tags that are already predefined, and these are always going to be available to every HTML document. The reason the document is included in the name is because it is really a document. All you're doing here is creating any document, just like you would in Word or PowerPoint, but with a lot more control on the programmatic scheme. So once we create some basic little layout, what we do want to do is actually save this. Save it as a type of file so it can recognize it. Because notice right now we've only got white text, nothing specifically unique about it. We'll start seeing a little bit of a difference once we actually go ahead and change this to, let's say, index.html. You can name this anything you want, but if you are going to be running it on a live website, this is the starting web name of the file that gets accessed. Every time your browser goes to a website, it looks for index.html or index.php. Whatever the case is, though, we want to make sure just for now we keep it a pattern. We keep this index.html. Of course, you want to be specific. Definitely name this after the project of the file. For instance, one of these was Hangman as a game. So let's go ahead and see this already exists. This is the Hangman space. So let me go a little bit back. Create a new space. And we'll go ahead and save this in an open space. So remember, if you have multiple codes or multiple files with the same name, especially since you're always naming this index.html, you want to make sure you put it in a folder that is unique to the name. In this case, I only named the test, but in my case scenario, if I was making an actual program, we would name that folder after the name, like you saw before, Hangman. So what do we do from here? First, you do want to kind of get this opened up and working on a browser. So this is exactly the reason why we're using JavaScript and HTML. If I right click on this header up here where the name is of this file, I can really quickly reveal an Explorer, and from there I can right click and actually open with a specific program, in this case browser. So as we see right now, it is a blank document, excuse the extra tabs. And what we want to do is start portraying something on this. There is no code involved yet, and this is why you're seeing a blank document. So let's go ahead and do this next. Next, we'll go ahead and put in welcome to our website. So going in, throwing this through, and saving. So saving, Control S, you can use on the keyboard shortcut, or you can always go and save from here. And there is a shortcut there as well. You do want to make sure you always save. You don't want to accidentally close the window or a crash happens and all of a sudden 3 hours worth of code gone. So we will reload this page, and there's a very basic sort of piece to this. So this is step one. This is HTML. Now, what we can do, we can actually organize this a little bit better and be a little more detailed with what we want this specific text to do. first and foremost, I want to contain it. I want to contain it in what we would call a div box, a divider, if you will. In this situation, we actually will be able to create multiple pieces, instances, multiple boxes. And what that does is we can customize each individual box with a specific design or basically interface. So let's go ahead and enter a little bit of CSS. This is done inside of our tags. So these little tags that we've been seeing are actually just called tags. The body tag, the head tag, the HTML tag, and in this case, the div tag. Each tag has specific additions we can do to that specific divider. So it includes everything between the beginning div and the end div. This will not be affected since it is on a different box on a different location. So what can we do with this style? Well, we can do color of a specific kind. So in this case, here's a unique reason why we like Visual Studio Code. It gives us possible ways to possible options for us to pick, or we can use other methods to get this color available to us. In this case, there's an RGB function as well that we can use. So what this does now is it should change the color of our text. And you notice that the second box is unaffected while the first definitely is. Now, final step. This is how we enter, and very quickly. Notice we've only done certain little details of HTML and CSS. Our goal, though, is actually going to be JavaScript. It is going to be the essential way for us and the quickest way for us to actually learn what to do and in programming in general. What we need to do in order to activate JavaScript. Now, we can place this anywhere. I would always personally place it at the end of my specific file right before the ending of our HTML document, and just to give it a bit of a organization. So a little more detail into each one of these tags. The head tag is where all the mechanics begin, where all the setups have been processed. All the colors, all the ways that the boxes should look, everything of a design. So if you're thinking of a document like an HTML document being the body of a human being, the head, minus the fact that it sounds like the head of the body, it is actually going to be where most of the flesh and bones comes from. So where our flesh, our skin color, our hair color, our eye color, all of that within the CSS, but this can be put inside of the head so it's loaded before the page loads. Now in the actual body space, and I think I just noticed an issue. This is going to happen, so don't worry. So in the case scenario, the body is where all the skeletal pieces of the body is. How tall is this website or this person? How wide is the website person? Or how big are the individual spaces and grids available? So in essence, we have the skeletal of the body of this document. And finally, the script can be considered the brain. This is where essentially we start to program, activating certain things. So here's a very quick way to access JavaScript. In this particular div, I will put a command called onClick. And as it sounds, it will actually onClick something. And then in this case, when we click, we want an alert to happen. So this is a very quick way we can actually do this. And from here, we can pop up a window and we can say, surprise. So these specific commands are written in stone, if you will. They have to be called in the exact same manner and in the exact same case size. You don't want a capital A in front, otherwise it won't work. One thing programming is very sensitive to is capital letters. So now with save, we will click done. So I will click on the first paragraph. Notice nothing happens. Then if I click anywhere on that second paragraph, the activated function exists. Now we have access to the inside of our browser. There's a lot of things we can do with this. Now, to organize it a little bit nicer, what we can do is, in the first lesson in our programming space, is functions. This is a custom named function. I have named this in my own way. I could have called it anything I wanted, just the letter A if I really wanted to. One thing to remember is keep it as defined as possible so you don't get lost in your own code. Now what I'll do is I'll take this JavaScript code cut it, place it inside of my function, and I will call this function instead. Now, not only do I get more organized code, I can have a much larger function to be able to do much or many more things. With this, I save, refresh, click. Now I can also make it a little bit more distinguished from how it was before, and I can do this situation. Now we can definitely tell that when I'm going through, there's a surprise for the first, and then we have inside function of our second alert. So we have successfully used JavaScript, connected it to an interface, and then, of course, we can give it styles and so forth. But that's more on the design level, which is a different course altogether. So in this general programming course, we will work with JavaScript simply because three reasons. One, it's quick. Two, it's simple. Three, it's instant. We can see everything we're doing right on this browser, and we've not set up anything other than this Visual Studio Code. And then again, if you don't really want to install it, you don't have to. You can still use a general text editor that will do this as well, just like Notepad. So that's going to be a little bit of an intro to this course, and it goes into a lot of detail. We'll be making plenty of games, anything from simple hangman game or chess to 2D and three-dimensional games. Of course, we will all begin on the same level in the very beginning and then work our way forward. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the courses.